Donna's story. My tale begins in late July, around the 21st, if I remember correctly. It was the inaugural day of our vacation, and the heat was palpable. I stood under the sun, gazing at the sea. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I was on a boat in Portsmouth along with my mother, father, and my sister, Louise. Seabirds frolicked around our large vessel, and small boats bobbed nearby. I began scanning the faces of the others on our boat. Everyone seemed to be enjoying the seaside birds, chatting and laughing. They were all in high spirits on this first holiday day, too. Then, out of nowhere, I spotted him, a tall, quiet boy wearing a blue and white shirt. He was genuinely handsome. I'll always remember that moment, the first time I laid eyes on him. At that moment, he was unaware of me, engrossed with his friends. I believe one of them was his brother. They shared the same striking blue eyes, mouth, nose, and nearly identical hair. His brother and one of the boys tried to catch some seabirds while he smiled at them. They soon moved closer to us, discussing the little boats on the water. I couldn't take my eyes off him, peering over Louise's head. His brother and the others were loud, but he was quiet and didn't speak much. Then, out of the blue, he turned his gaze towards me, locking his eyes onto mine. His shy blue eyes sparkled with a gentle smile. At that instant, everything around me, the fellow passengers, the sun, the sea, the birds, the chatter from his friends, faded away. It was as if time stopped, leaving just the two of us, lost in that shared moment, and his smile aimed solely at me. Gradually, the boat began to drift away across the waves towards Spain. The journey from Portsmouth to Santander takes a full day and night, one entire day and night spent together on the same vessel with him. We would be on this boat for that long. Perhaps I'd find a way to talk to him before we reached our destination. Maybe I'd catch a glimpse of him again that evening. It was a large, brand new boat equipped with cafes, shops, a cinema, and a disco. Later, Louise and I ventured to the disco together. We enjoyed a Coke, listened to the music, and watched the dancers. But he wasn't there. Then, out of nowhere, a tall boy in a black and white shirt walked in. It was him. He came in with a friend, pausing to look around at all the people in the disco. The dim lighting enveloped him as he scanned the room for quite a while. Eventually, he noticed me and flashed a big, warm smile. I felt an urge to leap up and sing. He crossed the room and approached our table, asking me to dance. Suddenly, he was no longer shy. We danced together for an extended period afterward. However, when I glanced up, I saw another tall boy in a blue and white shirt standing at the entrance of the disco, sharing the same eyes, mouth, and nearly identical hair. But the boy at the door had a gentle, quiet demeanor, no big, friendly smile. In that moment, realization struck me. I was dancing with his brother, not him. The boy leaned against the door, observing me and his brother on the dance floor, with a look of sadness in his eyes. I longed to rush over, take his sorrowful face in my hands, and apologize. He caught my gaze briefly before he hurried out. I stopped dancing, returned to my table, and sat down. His brother started dancing with Louise. That night I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were consumed by him while I listened to the sounds of the boat and the sea. The following morning at 8, I went to the cafe and eagerly waited there with my sister. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry." I drank 4 cups of coffee, despite not really liking it, but he never came. Where could he be? At 11 o'clock, we arrived in Santander. I wanted to halt the boat, to stop the vacation, to return to England. All I wanted was to see him again, to speak with him, to learn his name, but he was nowhere to be found. Mark's story. I began studying Spanish at school in September, and I really enjoy it. Our teacher, Mr. Webb, not Old Webb, as my mother insists, claiming he isn't old, takes a group from our school to Spain every July for the first 2 weeks of break. I think Mr. Webb is pretty decent for a teacher. At Portsmouth, we were there with Mr. Webb and Mrs. Webb, who is from Argentina. All the boys find her attractive, too. There were 6 of us with the Webbs: Harry Potts and his sister Sonia, my good friend Nick Atkins, clever Sue Bellamy, my brother Dave, and me. We're both 14 and typically good pals. The boat was overflowing with people. The sun was blazing, creating a lovely day. Passengers admired the sea and the small boats. I enjoyed soaking up the sun, dreaming about our 2-week holiday in Spain. Mr. Webb began one of his stories about Argentina, but I didn't pay much attention. Instead, I found myself observing the crowd. Then I spotted her, a stunning girl nearby with lovely brown eyes and dark hair. I'm quite shy and tend to fumble around girls. At that point, I didn't speak to her, but I watched her interacting with her family. After a while, they moved on, and she smiled at me for a brief moment before departing. My brother Dave caught sight of her and chuckled softly at my flushed face. I hope to see her again, maybe in the cafe during lunch or at the cinema later, but she was nowhere to be found. The film slipped from my memory too. That evening, we had drinks with Mr. Webb and lovely Lucrezia. That's what we call Mrs. Webb. Afterward, Dave and Harry headed to the disco. They were eager to meet some girls. Dancing's not really my thing, but I ventured to the disco later, hoping to catch sight of the beautiful girl with the captivating brown eyes and lovely smile. In the dim atmosphere of the disco, I stood near the entrance, observing the dancers. Then, there she was on the dance floor, with my brother Dave. She brightened up for him, flashing that gorgeous smile. I felt a wave of disappointment wash over me, and I stepped outside. I wandered to the edge of the sea, lost in thought. The next morning, I was awake before 6 o'clock, stepping outside to witness the early sun rising over the sea. Only an old man and the seabirds begrudgingly shared the moment with me. The man smiled, but we exchanged no words. I relished the tranquility. I returned to the cafe for coffee but lacked an appetite. I perpetually wished to see her again, hoping she'd stroll into the cafe, approach my table, share her name, and chat with me. But she never appeared. I waited and waited, but there was no sign of her. At 8 o'clock, I went searching for Nick and Dave. Dave was quiet throughout the day and treated me kindly. But as the clock struck 11 and we arrived in Santander, I realized once more she was gone.